Hey everyone, Xevrac here. Figured I'd do a bit of a voiceover for this one this evening. Pretty big update. Very exciting news. It's been 16 years since this game, still a lot of day once the server shut down. Pretty exciting project. So as you can see, quite a big update since the last video. Really, you can see here we've got some branding. Project Aurora. Aurora as in the Aurora bomber from Generals. For anyone who's interested in keeping it to the aesthetic, we can go into settings, interface, and we can actually change the theme back to the classic if we're chasing that original experience as what the alpha was. The feature parity will be 1-to-1 from the classic interface, as I've named it, to the modern interface, the Aurora interface. Huge thanks to DerPlayer for actually taking the time and effort to data mine and really just digging up lots of videos and finding frame by frame people going through and scrolling through these settings and recreating them. So massive thank you to DerPlayer. He's recently reconstructed this entire learn interface. We've got some more sections coming soon. Currently static only, but my intention is to wire this fully into the Blaze backend. You can see a concept of that here, so we can actually collate the profile data and then start collecting stats behind that. That's actually baked into Blaze. So there is a bit of work on my end to try and understand the stats collection part of it, but yeah, definitely up for the challenge. The idea would be is you'd sign in with a single account from our website. Coming in a minute, I'll share that towards the end. Pretty exciting. But yeah, you'd have your account. You'd be able to check your stats. You have your matches, just like the original game, and it gives a bit of fun competition. Global leaderboard. Long term, we'll have our quad system in place. So as we scale and grow, my ambition is that, the infrastructure will be costly, but I'm hoping that I get community support, and if we need servers in LA, Oceania, Asia, Europe, we can actually use this quad system to our advantage, so that as you are playing, regardless where you are in the world, there's no high ping, or latency. The idea is we'll start first with a single backend node in Australia, but if I get the support from you guys and can expand that infrastructure, I certainly will. I mean, the architecture, I'm already preparing that behind the scenes, as I've just mentioned, to make sure that that's possible, to make sure that experience is, as good as quality as it can be. For now, we are pulling some basic, what we call persona information behind the scenes and forwarding it to the front end. Definitely want to be able to track wins, all that kind of stuff. This static friends feed, I want to experiment with Discord integration, perhaps Discord applies online or something like that. A bit up in the air at the moment about it, but just on my mind. So I'm going to go back to this newer theme. This theme does, I lied, the old theme doesn't have, or classic theme doesn't have this in terms of feature parity, so it's pulling across the wire server and players count. So this is live, and obviously as the player base grows and the server base grows, this will update on the front end, so you can see at a glance who's playing and how many servers there are. There'll be a quick matchmaking here, so we can create a party, lobby up with friends. Ideally, I'd love to try and experiment with integration into Discord and have parties through Discord, which I have seen in other projects before for other games, so pretty excited about that. Yeah, quick matchmaking settings, clicking play, and I kind of wanted just to find a match and away you go. Again, leaning on the Blaze backend there. this was more in line with what the game was originally doing in terms of matchmaking, but I also wanted to take the lobby idea a bit further and also look at implementing our server browser. Because we can get that information and break apart client and server, which I'll show you shortly, we do have a dedicated pool. So in the back end, this will dedicate all the pools, all the servers to the server pool, whether they're idle or in use. So in here we can actually wire that across and show if it's joinable or not, if it's in the lobby phase or it's in game phase, and who knows, maybe down the line we could add it spectator support. This is something that some people have added, in the past for other titles that weren't originally designed to have it. So that's pretty cool. We can pick our maps. Right now, the focus is on just the alpha tutorial as a bit of a benchmark. I'll get to a bit of the architecture and the explanation behind the next sort of sheer hill climb kind of effort that's required, I guess, before this is ready. But I'll explain that shortly. But we can pick our team color. This is just for demonstration purpose at the moment. I haven't wired through the RTS house colors yet, but that's definitely possible. It's done. I'll just show you here with the console that I was able to re-implement. So I think it's house color. Yeah, and the set house color, selectable house color. Yeah, so it's baked into the game, ready to go. I've just got to wire it across. Tutorial is a bit of a funny one. After doing some data mining, the play tutorial in the original game was under something that looked like this, but what happens behind the scenes, it actually creates a lobby, and that lobby has one general, and that general is the tutorial general. So you can see the faction, there's 3 factions. Fun fact, there is USA in the game code, but it's not used or incomplete. And then there's all the generals here, but there is a tutorial general. So I don't fully understand the differences between the classic general and the tutorial one yet, but they're the closest to the two of the rest. So if I go back to alpha tutorial, we've sort of controlled the faction and general type here, because after looking at the EBX files and just analyzing the blueprints for this map, there are scripted events that we need to re-implement again on this architecture I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, I'll come back in a minute and I'll show you the server side. I'm back. So yeah, let's get looking. Let's get into looking at server. I'll run that now. So I'll let it spawn in. Getting this server working was an absolute nightmare. Like on top of just scraping the code to make it work, Victory games, like, if I just go back for a second, whoops, sorry, to the exit. So they obviously are using EA, technology, and one of the pain points is Victory games were experimenting, which is always exciting, but for reverse engineering it's a nightmare because everything's unpredictable. So their game studio had one sort of subject matter expert, or really knowledgeable person in terms of Frostbite development, technical engineering, architecture, all of that DICE has become very proficient at over the years working with this technology, Frostbite, Blaze, the whole stack. I won't get into that today. But because of that, fun little history lesson just through discovering through all the game photos and things, game files and things. You'll notice when you look at the game files, there's a few DLL files that are written in .NET, if you're clever enough to figure that out. And yeah, long story short, it wasn't until about 30 to 40 days of trying to re-implement Ghost Manager, and you can see in here like player count 0, that's the Frostbite network stack. What I had discovered is that Victory Games didn't use the Frostbite engine's network stack. They used the Blaze communication stack, but they didn't use the Frostbite engine stack. So rather than using UDP over some of their, you know, proprietary protocol, I'm sorry, not proprietary, just UDP layer in terms of talking to the engine, um, they ended up using TCP with their own .NET stack broken into three different layers. So one is SimuCloud. SimuCloud is the bits and bobs that we don't get the luxury of having. So that would have been on their servers. No matter how much I dig through the client code, there's just nothing there. So that's our gap. So earlier I was preluding on, I explain that a bit better later. I I'll get into a bit more once I'm in the game to show you what I'm talking about. Um, but then the other part is the message sys layer, um, and then obviously the base layer is .NET. So message sits on the .NET. .NET obviously establishes the TCP pipe, and SimuCloud, it does event handling. Sorry, and on the third layer there's a client event messenger uh, protocol that has like serialized messages it gets across the wire. It has 250 event messages. It's like building a building, destroying a unit, repairing a building, moving a unit, um, using a power or an ability, winning the game, losing the game, earning money, spending money. So this architecture was very much server-sided, which I think everyone was aware of, which is why everyone thought it was impossible. But where there's perseverance, and someone as crazy enough as me to try and give it a go, it's possible. So the hard effort is re-implementing a lot of those, 250 events. Yep. But we're this far, which I think means, a lot of the hard work's been done. Really, it's just re-implementation and filling in the gaps. Right, so let's get in game. We can see it's waiting here. Click play. We'll go alpha tutorial. As I mentioned, these are all locked out. We can't change the generals. I have popped in all the little avatars for all the different types, so we can see all those here. Yeah, all right, let's get started. So you can see a lot's happening here. Our backend will negotiate the initial acknowledgement, call that orchestration. So that's another part of the layer. Once orchestration's happened, it actually handshakes. We get in the game. Last video you saw we're on a black screen. A lot is happening here right now. So I'll go through it step by step. So last video, we saw the game with a black screen. Two things are happening there. The first one was we were way off the screen. So the camera extents weren't defined. The game had no idea where we were. Once I fixed that, still on a black screen, and the fog of war, or what they call internally as the shroud revealer, wasn't defined. As in, because of this cloud gap, the simu cloud and the network layer, that wasn't implemented, at least on the server side. So I had to implement that, and then still had a black screen, which was very bizarre. After a bit of a tip from a friend, they mentioned, why don't you just try the old fade enable false, which is a trick in all Frostbite titles. So essentially, if the game is not in if the local player hasn't fully prepared, or there's something in that join game routine that's been missed, the screen will always be black. So enabling that to false revealed a terrain that looked about as plain as this, nothing going on. I went over to the city center and there was nothing going on, no entities, no trees, some world props baked in, but in terms of actual structures and things, nothing. So that's when I realized that, right, so in those 250 messages or so, somehow these entities were being streamed over the network, and populated in the game. So I started to realize just how much more heavy, or network dependent or network heavy this was. So in its current state right now, I am um, collecting or scraping those blueprints from the in the world files and streaming them across properly. It's a bit buggy, but until I can think of a different way of doing it, I think it's the only stable way of doing it. Yeah, so we have buildings, which was cool, but it wasn't really enough, I think, for an update 2. So I did some more work, and I added a debug menu, and in here what I was able to do is scrape the um, application or binary or whatever, and pull out the actual debug commands that the developers use at the time. So we can do things like this, reveal fog of war. Now the reason why I have to do that right now is, again, fog of war and uh, unit entities and where they are streamed across the network as well. This minimap streamed across the network. So right now I've got it, I've captured an offset, and I've got it good enough, but there's some translation, sort of XZ coordinate translation going on. So if I click this river over here, it's a little bit too far over. So here's river here, but we're over here. So it's not really lining up just quite right. And it's got to do with, you can see how the little cell highlighter just wigs out there. So there's a lot of technical sort of nuances going on here, but rest assured, it's a work in progress. We'll get there. Next challenge was trying to start getting the tutorial mission scripted events going. I'm not in a stage yet where as you saw, the pre-scripted camera from videos from 2013 you can see on YouTube, the camera's supposed to sort of cinematically move across and then zoom in and do something. I haven't got that yet. All the enemies units are my units, so there's no like player persistence or consistency at all yet. I really wanted to get the coordination done properly with these units before making this video. So what happened before was, if I told a unit to go to 3 o'clock, it would go completely west. If I told it to go 12 o'clock, it would go completely to 6 o'clock or south. So the navigation was just completely stuffed. And that's just because it needs to be translated over the wire, over that network simulation. And you've just got to understand, like, when you've got another player in the match, which is a whole nother thing, which we'll get to later. I think in my roadmap, I've got that in like a phase 3. It's a whiles away, but having independent players in the same match, you kind of need this network orchestration to be as best as it possibly can, because as soon as anything goes wrong, you'll get desyncs or anything funny like that. And if anyone's played General Zero or anything for a long time, you'll understand that mismatches and poor networking is really not a fun time. Yeah, so what we're doing right now is we've got all the entities. Our reimplementation can understand some of the events, blueprints, entities going on. There's a couple assertions still going on in the debugging when I'm starting the server. So some of the entities have certain types and things that I haven't been able to recognize yet, or make it recognize, but we'll get there. Speaking of events, so we can move them around, but for some reason they can only move a certain distance. I don't know why that is yet, but if I spam clicking, it seems to make it. So there's just some message handling going on that I need to work out. Garrison doesn't work just yet, so that's again another one of those events that I haven't re-implemented yet. Attacking, so if I can control and right click on a unit to force attack, doesn't do that yet. Building, now I was able to hook the cost or the eco or economy and force give myself money programmatically to do some testing. I won't do that in the purposes of today's video, but I was able to get a bulldozer and start building buildings, and then the hologram of that building would appear, but the building wouldn't build. So again, that must be an event that once that building's on the map, those coordinates are locked in and shared over the wire, and then the progress of that building's event driven. A lot of things event driven. The buildings have a bit of a funny pip. It just doesn't seem to match the dimensions of the buildings yet. Again, likely event driven. So yeah, and then not only on that as the player, and like I mentioned earlier, scripted camera events, but objectives aren't wide in yet. Looking into that next. I want to fix the mini map to make it more accurate, obviously, so it's working properly, and that way we're respecting out of bounds. Because right now I can just go off the map, and all sorts. Then gets AI player in here, so that'll help me understand, using the tutorial map will help me understand sort of using the AI player as a benchmark. I can learn how that persistence is supposed to work across this game in this engine, so small steps at a time. Really impressed with the graphics. I haven't, again, because I haven't got the attack events driven just yet. I haven't been able to sort of see just the absolute destruction in its full, glory and beauty, but soon. Yeah. Let me run through. So I've got taunting mostly working. The client can recognize the event, but the sound isn't playing yet. It's a bit of work in progress. What else we got? I've re-implemented the main menu. So obviously this game's heavily web driven. This is actually just a HTML. So I had to recreate this. Got the menu going, all the events. It's a bit buggy. I've just got to be able to find a way to pull the current setting for a user in their session. You can notice there it said full screen, but I'm not full screen. I'm windowed, and if I went and just clicked OK, it would change. It's quite annoying. Same with volume. You might click OK on accident and just blares the volume at max like that. So I'll turn that back down. Controls all work. Edge panning, so we can turn that on. Gameplay, allow deselect. Yeah. So surrender, something that wasn't in the original. If you go back to videos, you'll find that it's just options, quit, return. But I've seen it in the game code. I've seen surrenders in there, so I'm going to experiment with that and see if it's not something we can add as a bonus. The best part of doing this effort is we kind of get the best of both worlds. I'm excited that we can add things that we want. We can actually, just looking at what I've looked at so far and understanding how we can manipulate things, we can actually do starting cache, which is something that was never in the game before, or at least wasn't chosen to be put into the game on purpose or deliberately. But we can do that. Starting positions, I think absolutely can be done. It looked like from the videos I was researching and studying years ago, players were just chosen at random. There was no ability to select a spot. So, going back to the roots of CNC, I think it's a very expected thing in a pre-lobby phase to see the starting locations on like a map preview, and you can pick your spot. So unless there's something else that I can't foresee right now that's going to stop that, but I'm very much looking forward to being able to add some of those good quality of life things. A lot of progress, 2 years, lots of lines of code. Just been a lot of focus on this the last few weeks, trying to get a meaningful update out to everyone. But yeah, I'll keep going. Thanks all for the feedback and everything. Before I go, I'll give you an update on our website and how to join our Discord. And you can talk to me there, ask questions. I want to be able to capture, any comments to sort of help build the roadmap. We will have a feature tracker, and once we start doing playtesting, we can have a forum for discussion to have a list of priorities or bugs and things to fix, gaps, that kind of thing. Might just go through the debug menu first with you all. There's a couple in here that don't really work, but we can actually commence the server by 1 frame on purpose. The granting gold I looked into for a few hours yesterday to see why this wouldn't work. It's for when the game's in development, you can actually have a local player in a local server, but in this configuration, this doesn't go anywhere in the code. It's like a dead end, I guess, if you will. Same with this one. Again, the refogger wall, we can unlock the camera, which means like when I'm scrolling, it can keep scrolling. I don't want to go too far because what happens is some of the transform numbers wig out and I get some assertions, which can crash the game. But you can go right in like first person, which is pretty cool. If you keep zooming in, you're gonna have to bear with me. It might crash, but you can kind of get. Oh, there we go. Crashed. We're good though. We can actually get like proper first person because it is frostbite, so it all just sort of, you know, kind of looks like a first person game, which is pretty cool. Very trippy. Obviously, nothing's to scale, but pretty cool. You can see the little dudes down there, and yeah, zoom back out here. Running through that more. This invulnerability. Again, I think I haven't been able to test that because I haven't got those events put in there yet. But killing a unit doesn't actually kill it yet, again, because the event isn't wired through. But we can actually see the status of a unit given by its ID and what it's doing. Spawn unit doesn't work just yet. There are debug functions that developers used to use, so this is something that they used to have, which is pretty cool. So you can go through any unit in here and spawn it. Right now, obviously, the spawn again, spawning and building is event driven, so this isn't going to work right now. But still pretty cool. We can teleport units. We can show unit info. So you have to click on the unit and then press enter. That will show you it. But if I deselect, it doesn't work. So we can see who it belongs by. Max HP. Also category it's in. Frosted's the Frostbite engine editor. So obviously nothing's going to work there. We don't have the editor. Moving on, we can show path targeting, banding volumes. There's something missing there. I'm kind of curious to go have a bit of a poke and a prod and see what that is. We can see AI goals. Some of these don't seem to do much, but you can navigate through nav meshing, which will be actually hoping it works because it'll be a useful feature to see how this scripting works in these events for AI-driven gameplay. We can change the locale. Obviously, some of it's broken. Display mode, so it's like a debug for different types of. Into the internal name, and I don't know what the Z's for. Maybe it's just like. No, I've got no idea. I thought maybe it's like length, but that seems to look a bit funny. Anyway, gameplay timers, spawn timers, force power state, grant ability. So this one's a pretty interesting one. We can actually give ourselves any kind of superpower. And there's E3 trailer ones that are in here. Obviously, it's a bit of a, in E3 trailers, we know they always try and puff these things up to make them look better. But yeah, again, no, it's event driven, so nothing's happening here right now. But it's a good utility to have once we start looking at doing that, and want to make sure it works. Instant win and instant lose, again, same thing. Would be a great testing ability to make sure we're wiring that across properly. Right now, obviously, it's not doing anything because we don't have that wired in. Server-side scripts, gameplay data, disable AI. So we can enable server debug rendering view sync. So there's some functions in here that I want to look into these server-side ones because we don't have those obviously right now. But again, filling in the gaps, being able to have some of this might be able to help. Client paths. Not sure what that does. RVO. I am not sure what that does. The toggle sound does nothing. And we just go through some other RTS commands are a bit different than RTS debug. You can see here that some of it doesn't work properly. You have to have a bit of a poke in the code to understand what value it wants. We can set house colors. We can actually turn them off as well. Just gotta find where they are. There's a way to turn it off. mucking with it earlier on. Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, plenty of options. So we'll run through a little bit quicker here. Debug weapon spawner. Get more RTS commands. Go back to debugs over here. Renderers. Projectile test. And again, it's missing a blueprint, so likely something that was pulled out of the game for production. They had, like, obviously during their build sprints or pipeline process, they had some scripts they could rapidly test on demand. Invoking designer script. So obviously none of these work. And down the bottom here, we can increase unit veterancy, which is a good thing, because again, once we wire that in, we can test it. Or progression, same thing, good thing to test once we start getting everything wired in. Chat visibility does work. I'm having a bit of a display issue with this, but I've been experimenting with sending messages straight over Frostbite's native multiplayer wire. So they have a messaging system in the engine. Whether or not they used it, being Victory games, I think that they would not have, but we'll see. You can see the chat still appear. Once I get a second player streamed in and have two players, be curious to see if this works across on their side as well. But it's a good starting point. Pause menu, and that's it. There's a lot more commands in the normal console, but the debug menu was just a quick way to show a lot of things, mostly useful things or more useful things than, I think it's like 2,000 commands in here. I did have a counter added in here at one point, but anyway. This is Command & Conquer, otherwise known as Project Aurora. So thanks for tuning in, sticking around. I have one last update to finish off with. I'm back. So one last update is our website will be live at the time of uploading this video. Same with our Discord. So I'll chuck a link in the description to this website. It'll be aurora.refracted.au, and yeah, it'll just have a little bit of information about what it's all about, and then eventually we'll have our launcher. It's a very simple one. It'll be a .NET Edge to Vue sort of launcher, so nothing complicated. But the idea is you'll drop this into the legitimate copy of your game build files, folders, whatever you call it, game directory, sorry. And it'll just drop in the required Prism files. So Prism is like the network redirector, so that you're telling the game to, instead of hitting those dead links that were shut down, years and years ago, it'll hit our backend and talk to Refracted, and it'll contain the patches so you can run your own server. At this point in time, I haven't made up my mind on how much security I want behind the servers. So some projects I've seen out there, and some developers like to have a master key system to sort of control and prevent abuse of servers, also or of the service or services, or just sort of have an unauthenticated architecture where you can have as many servers as you want, and that talk to the master server. Not too sure how I want to go about that yet, but that's sort of the fun part of these early days. We can decide about all these things, and well, you guys can talk about that on the community. Ask me questions. Discord's at the top here or down the bottom here. We'll have a roadmap. Right now it's empty, but I'll have all of the items of where I'm up to. I mentioned there's 250 events that I have to wire in. So we'll put these all. I'll put these all in this build plan. Downloads coming soon. You'll be able to support us. So that's all I have. Update 2. Pretty big update. Hope you guys are pleased with the developments, and always open to answer questions. I'm a very busy bee, very hard to get a hold of. But if you guys want to jump on that Discord, ask me questions. I'll do my best to answer. I look forward to sharing more updates. And Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your time, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.